A little cottage had caught her eye, but it was a bit out of their usual price range, and Harriet wasn't convinced the margin would be adequate enough to make Ian bite. But it had kept her mind busy, thinking about the possible potential, and she knew she would probably come back to it again another day. She did get a bit twitchy if she didn't have enough projects on her plate. An idle mind is the devil's workshop, Nana Lorna always said. Bathroom? Ian asked, a fingertip at her elbow, guiding her a little to the left. Harriet nodded. Of course. It had to be the bathroom first. It was their new house ritual. Each time their investment property business completed on a house, they did the same thing. The bathroom was usually the very worst room of the house, so the first exploration began there. Harriet carefully began to climb the stairs, her eyes still closed, Ian behind her, feet tentatively making their way, hand on the rail. This bathroom suite, she remembered, was avocado in all the worst ways. And from zooming in on the particulars 6 weeks ago, an hour before the auction began, Harriet had discovered the green and purple blind hanging at half-mast was far more mould than it was material. It was as if the owner had tried to inject a little modern into the space at one time, and then it had succumbed to neglect like everything else. That blind would be the first thing to go before the black started to spread to other places. But one thing that had caught Harriet's eye in a good way were the bathroom tiles in this property. They seemed to be authentic stone, looking almost as if they might have been chiselled directly from one of the rocks at Stonehenge. The current trend wasn't for totally sleek and white minimalist. It was for splashes of colour, light-up signs declaring love or home, and lots of fake plants and books people would never read. Harriet couldn't wait to see what the tiles would look like once they'd been given a good clean. Usually they invested in small apartments or maisonettes that would suit young professionals, but Harriet thought immediately, with this one, that it might be better destined for a young family just starting out, with its 2 bedrooms and small patch of grass at the back. Ready? Ian asked. Somehow her mind's eye knew they were stopped outside the snug but adequate family bathroom. The anticipation was building inside her. She wanted to see what was there, knowing she was going to make it more livable and lovable for someone else to enjoy and for their company to reap the monetary reward. And open your eyes. Harriet flicked her eyelids up, and immediately, instead of feeling that initial fear that they'd bitten off more than they could chew, she was floored. The avocado suite was gone, replaced with a bright white bath, sink and toilet, taps of sparkling chrome. The blind was gone too, and instead there was a cheap metallic silver Venetian alternative. And as for the rustic stone tiles, they had been entirely ripped away. Stuck to the wall now was the familiar plain-gloss white brand Ian always favoured. Harriet wasn't sure what to say, so she didn't say anything. Instead, she blinked a couple of times and wondered if she'd somehow fallen down Alice's rabbit hole. "You're so shocked," Ian said, looking immensely pleased with himself. "God, if this small transformation has rendered you speechless, I might not bother to up my game for Christmas gifts this year." Harriet still didn't know what to say, because she didn't know how this had happened. As far as she knew, they'd only got the keys today. But it was obvious from the brand spanking new fixtures and fittings in this room that someone had had prior access. And it didn't sit well. Why had Ian done this without her, without even talking to her? Now it was time to speak. Now, when she was stepping towards the frankly too cheap blind, even she wouldn't have considered putting in this property they would only own as long as it took to sell. Pressing a finger to one of the slats, it bent so easily. Perhaps it was foreshadowing her role in this relationship, easily manipulated, sometimes fragile to the touch. Not fully committed? She swallowed, wishing her brain hadn't offered those suggestions. "Ian, when did you do this?" Harriet asked, turning back to look at him. She silently prayed that he wouldn't lie to her. 2 years and 5 months together, and somehow, as much as she thought she knew his likes, dislikes, and opinion on Lorraine Kelly, she still didn't feel she knew his soul. "What?" he asked. He was digging hands into his coat pockets now and giving her that small smile he put on when he was channeling.